Welcome to the Deal Room, the podcast dedicated to helping real estate professionals and investors navigate the complexities of the market and build lasting success. I'm your host, Heyshan Perez, and today's guest brings a fascinating perspective, combining military discipline, strategic leadership, and real estate savviness. Joining me is Sean Farson, Director of Investments at a veteran-owned syndication firm in San Diego, managing over 165 million in assets. Sean's journey from military service to building a 10 property using Burr method and now leading acquisitions for large-scale multifamily deals is one you don't want to miss. Sean, first, thank you for joining me. You had a remarkable career, 20 years in military, then pivoting into real estate. Can you walk us through that transition? What sparked your interest in property investing while still serving?
Yes, well, thank you very much for having me. I do appreciate it. So, my real estate journey is a little bit less traditional. What really got me started was buying my first house. I did have that benefit, I did have that advantage of having a VA loan. I bought my house back in 2012. So, that was a time when the market was still very much near the bottom. 2009 was the complete bottom. I started to recover in 2010, 2011. So really great time to buy at the very beginning of 2012 for me here in San Diego, but also had that added benefit of using a VA loan to purchase it. So I took that leap. I know there's a lot of veterans out there that never take the leap. I hear statistics, something crazy like 90% of vets never use their VA loan anyways. So that's what got me started. 2012, I just did nothing but live in that house and make payments on it for about 8 years. And in 2020, the value of it had almost tripled. And I looked around at all the other investments I had made over the last 10 years and realized that it had made me more money and was a bigger investment than anything else I'd ever done. And it kind of happened by surprise. So that really piqued my interest in real estate. Like, wow, look at all my net worth is just growing and all I'm doing is living here and making payments. Instead of renting and paying someone else's mortgage payment for them, I'm paying my own. So that really got me started on that real estate journey. What transitioned while I was still active service, about 5 years before I retired. Both of my grandparents passed away, not at the same time, but pretty close to each other. And my grandfather actually built the house that they passed away in. So he lived there his whole life. My dads and uncles grew up in this house. I grew up in this house over the summer times. So a lot of fond memories there. And after they passed, I learned that they were upside down on their house, that they owed more than twice what it was worth. I'm thinking to myself, my grandfather built this house back in the 1960s. How does he owe Wells Fargo twice what this thing is being appraised at? There was a lot of questions I had, and it really got, my family didn't have any means to do anything. They were going to let the bank just take the house. And I just wouldn't let that happen. So I started reading books. I started listening to Bigger Pockets. I just listening to podcasts, reading books that everyday people like you and me. They just started their real estate journey and spent about 4 months reading books and listening to podcasts, and then decided to take charge. I negotiated a deal with Wells Fargo, only offered them about a quarter what was owed on the loan, and they took my offer. So I was able to secure the house for $30,000, put about $100,000 in renovations into it, and then it was worth $200,000 when I was done. So I just burred out of it. I rented it out and then refinanced. And it really accelerated my journey from there. I took out a HELOC on my house with the equity I had. I took out that line of credit, borrowed basically a second mortgage. And then I started using that financial power, that borrowing power with the other capital that I had just earned from burring my grandmother's house. And I took that money and I started building a portfolio out of state. So my first deal that I bought. So that one went through probate and I had to negotiate with the bank. Totally different than when I actually started offering on deals and secured my first deal. And my first one was actually 2 houses, 2 separate properties that both have ADUs on them. And it was such a great deal for me. It was in 2020. The market was still really good. Rates were, I think I got like a 3.6 rate on that, which was an insane rate. And it was a huge success. It was a great deal for me. I went in there, renovated everything, and then just started doing that. So over the course of the next few years, I built that up to about 10. And at that point, In about 2023, none of my deals were penciling out anymore. The amount of money I could get for rent wasn't equaling how much I had to pay for mortgage payments because rates kept on rising and rising and rising. And it got to a point where every offer I made, I just kept getting beat out, or the numbers just didn't make sense. So I pulled out. I still own and operate those properties out of state. And, that's really where I kind of got my real estate, my passion, my knowledge, my plenty of mistakes I could go over with you. Everything I read about, they tell you not to do. I'm sure I did in some way, shape, or form. You think maybe that you're smarter than other people and you're going to save some money, or no. There's so many landmines and pitfalls and things to avoid. But anyways, as I continued on my journey, I earned a business degree, and now I'm going to school here in San Diego for a Master of Science in Real Estate. So I'm learning all about commercial real estate, and that's how I got connected to the syndicator that I'm working for. My mentor from the program, also a veteran, he works for a real estate syndicator. Almost everybody I work with here in the office has their own portfolio that they own and operate, privately. But then we're all here at the syndicate working to own and operate this big portfolio, 35 multifamilies here in San Diego.
Awesome. Burr method in St. Louis, Sean, it's very similar to my journey as well. I did the same thing in Cleveland, so I'm very familiar. Rinse and repeat and go back and buy another house. Yeah, it's fascinating. You talked about the house that you inherited. You took it over and redid it and did the Burr method on it. That's awesome. Talk about what you're doing right now. You are a leading acquisition and underwriting firm working for a syndication firm, managing 35 properties and over 165 million in assets. What does your day-to-day look like as director of investments?
Yeah, so I want to backtrack here. I never thought that I would be sitting in this driver's seat a couple years ago, towards the end of my retirement, really wondering what direction my life was going to go in. And I did a lot of self assessments and a lot of different programs, and they all kind of pointed me towards real estate. So yeah, here I am working in my passion, working in what I love to do. But my day to day, I think why I thrive in this environment, coming from the special operations background, where you have to be very diverse. You have to be able to problem solve. You have to be able to, kind of be able to zoom in on things and then zoom back out. My day to day consists of looking at detailed Excel analysis. So we'll do 5-year discounted cash flow analysis on a lot of our properties. And the way that works is, we'll look at how much money they're making now. We'll project how much it's going to cost to renovate them and build out ADUs. We build it all into the model, how much it's going to cost to finance the deal. And then once we raise the rents, because we've increased the value of the property and renovated over 5 years, how much money can we make? And then we'll apply an exit cap rate based on assumptions. Where do we think cap rates are going? And then we'll do a 5-year discounted cash flow model back and look at what the actual value is or what we can offer for it. So I'm looking at tons of underwriting on properties here in San Diego. We've looked also at properties across the country in Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, New York, you name it. What helps me a lot at this company, we have a lot of people. No one could do a syndication alone. I see all of the moving parts of it to own and operate. They have their own construction. We have our own operations. We have our own acquisitions. It's all in-house here. So we have assistants that help us with some of the preliminary information, like say a broker gives me an OM. Hey, I got this deal we're going to list in a week, a little pocket listing. I'll get the OM and I'll ask my assistant to input the data into our model. From there, once she's done, I'll take the model and I'll start pulling all the levers on it. I'll just look at how many different options we have. What if we do ADUs this way? Or what if we renovate to this standard? There's lots of different, what if I assume this cap rate versus that cap rate? Acquisitions. I'm looking at deals and I'm looking at what's a good deal for us. I have a certain buy box that I operate in, and I'm constantly trying to identify deals. Outside of that, I'm talking to a lot of brokers. So real estate's very, very relationship oriented, right? It's talking to people all the time. So whether I'm talking to people on my team or I'm talking to people outside of the team, I'm having to see a lot of deals and get a lot of deal flow. So I'm looking at stuff that hits the market. I'm looking at stuff that is off market. And I'm looking at these big some of these big portfolio sales. So that's a big part of what I'm doing here. Also, once we find a deal and we start making the offers, we get into the phase where we're going to be raising money. So because we're a syndication, we'll get a deal under contract first before we raise the money for it. But we like to shop it around with our investors first before we just commit all the way in and make the offer. So we might see a really good deal, and I have to build a full marketing package for that, right? So I'll use AI tools to help build these marketing packages out, and it's based on our underwriting assumptions, based on what we see with the property, and we shop these out to different levels of investors. So I can kind of break down this syndication and how it would work. So we work with 3 different types of investors at the syndication. And we have the retail investor, which whenever we're going down to tackle deals at like 0 to say $5 million deals, that's the retail investor where we'll get it under contract and we'll go out and we'll raise money from friends and family, from other veterans. We have a lot of military investors, from people that want to put, $25,000 down, $50,000 down. And that is, about our minimum. After we break kind of that 5 million and get into the 5 to 10, maybe 5 to $15 million range, that goes to a different type of investor. That's kind of more of like an institutional investor where there's partnerships, people that want to be co-GP or possibly just raise money for projects. But it's a different level of kind of institutional investor. We're not going out trying to raise from individual people. We're going to more of a organization. And then there's the really big deals and the huge portfolios. There's private investors for those. Without disclosing anymore, they have all cash and are a totally different type of a buyer. So really, it kind of all breaks down depending on what type of a deal is, what area it's in, how much is the deal. So there's a lot that kind of goes into it with the syndication. So we're raising money lots of different ways, and the type of marketing packages that we put together look different. So I'm in charge of that. I'll put together different spreadsheets and send those out to the investors. I'll put together marketing materials and send that out to investors as well. And then after the properties go under contract, I help source all the debt products, go through, look at all the term sheets, and help pick the right debt products for all of our loans for the deals. That's day to day. I'm doing a lot for the organization. And it can change, on a dime.
Wow, that's impressive, Sean. I'm going to shift gears a little bit.
Sure.
And focus on some of the listeners who are getting into real estate, newbies, they're new investors, or maybe professionals just like you transitioning into real estate. What advice would you like to give to someone starting out, especially those coming in from non-traditional real estate backgrounds?
Okay, well, I'd say several pieces of advice. Number one, make sure you do your homework first. Make sure you're reading the books. Make sure you're listening to the advice that other people are giving you. And then make sure you're doing your analysis right. Whenever you start learning how to underwrite deals, or you start learning how to analyze deals, if you will, you want to make sure you're analyzing, multiple deals, 10, 20, 50, 100 deals, where you're going through it and you're going through the practice and getting the iterations in. But at some point, you got to make the offer too. Right. At some point, you're going to have to go in and make that offer, but don't make an offer that you have to stretch yourself to make. Only make the offer that makes sense. Only make the offer that the numbers tell you to make, and believe in the numbers, right? Believe in what you're seeing. And if they don't take your offer or someone outbids you, that's just not your property. So that's one thing I would say to new investors. The other thing is, don't get into that analysis paralysis. Just make the offer. Even if you think it's too low, throw it in there. Maybe it retrades. Maybe you're able to negotiate somewhere in the middle that makes sense for both of you. Another thing I'd caution, some of the biggest mistakes I've made has been when I try and save money or think that I'm cutting a corner, or, take, for instance, contractors are one of the biggest pitfalls that I've ran into. And through my 5 years of doing this, multiple contractors, people that are licensed and you think are good to go, that just do poor installation jobs and you have to go back and get it redone by someone else. Contractors that have just outright stolen money. Contractors that have done things where they hire other contractors and then don't pay them, and then those contractors put a lien on your house. Like their contract, especially me doing this out of state, it's hard to keep tabs on on people. But I know a lot of friends in real estate, and it's a very similar story. So, always do your homework on your contractors. And the way you do that is you get referrals, you talk to other people that they've worked with, you look at projects that they've done, and you pay the premium. There's a reason that they're charging a little bit more than everybody else in town. It's because they do good work. And that good work is going to last you a long time, and it's going to save you a lot more money in the long run. When you pay the guy that's $5,000 less, guess what? You're paying another $20,000 a year later to redo the work. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's kind of the thing that I've learned. And make sure they're licensed, make sure they're bonded. You really, really don't want to skip over that step, is doing your homework on the people that you're paying to do work for you. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a lot of information, a lot of strategy, a lot of insight. Thank you so much for sharing. This next topic that I have is something that you already touched upon. Maybe we'll go into a little bit deeper. It's AI, how AI is reshaping every corner of real estate. You just mentioned that you are using AI extensively to do market analysis, even the deal analysis. Even when you're going through underwriting, you're taking the use of AI. Would like to add on specifically on AI, how it's going to reshape the market and how new investors should be taking advantage of it, and how AI might be reshaping the real estate market over the next few years.
Sure. I'd love to give my thoughts on this. Yeah, I think powerful tools, there's a lot of powerful tools out there, right? AI is one of many, but a tool, in my opinion, is only as powerful as the person that's wielding it. There's ways to use it appropriately and ways not to. And I think where I'm at in my position, I'm in the absolute perfect position to be leveraging every tool at my disposal. Here at a syndicate, it's very much entrepreneurial. It's very much figure it out. No one's holding your hand. Go out there, get it done. And with AI, it really helps speed up every single process. And I'll just give you an example of all the different AI tools that I use and how I use it to help my daily workflow. So one of the easiest ones that I use, and it's obvious, is ChatGPT. And that's for a lot of whenever I need a lot of descriptions. So what I'll do, I'll get detailed analysis. I'll get OMs, which are offering memorandums from brokers. And I can take these offering memorandums, I'll download these PDFs, and I can upload multiple PDFs, 3, 4, 5 offering memorandums, say for an entire portfolio. And I can ask it just to summarize all that data for me. And I can quickly get detailed numbers and data across the portfolio just to give a good snapshot. I can also use it for any of my descriptions and my marketing material. When I do detailed financial analysis, I don't rely on any AI. We do our own Excel spreadsheets. There's been a huge push recently in the last year with Claude. I know it's been using a lot, and it's been used a lot with Excel. I personally, we're just relying on our own 5-year discounted cash flow models. Another tool that I'm using is Canva. It's huge. When I'm building out packages or when I'm looking at different marketing material, I'm using it to put our own branding, our own logos, our own quickly, way better than any PowerPoint, but I'm putting together huge packages, 50, 60 page packages, and I have to edit all of them. So Canva is great for editing. But then for actually putting together the marketing material, I don't have 2 weeks to spend putting all this data or all of these slides together. So what's great is once I have my Excel model, I take my Excel model and I load all of the data into a AI platform we're using. It's called Intel CRE. And there's lots of them just like it. And it just creates a marketing brochure for us. And once we have the brochure, from there, I'm using the different AI. I'm using ChatGPT to get all the descriptions, to get all of the precise property data that we've already given it, summarizing it, and then I'm using Canva to edit it. So that's 3 different AI tools I'm using right there just for, say, marketing packages alone. So anytime I'm doing research with the city, ChatGPT is an excellent resource when I actually point it to documents. I don't ever rely on it I don't ask it a question and just take any answer it gives me. I point it at specific documents. I'll download actual PDFs and I have it extract information from those PDFs that I can actually go back in and verify. I also will ask it for links that I can click on. So it's a great way to get information about city ordinance, laws, codes, quickly summarizing data when you're giving 400 pages of information. I can get right to it, So I don't waste any time at all, and I'm using every tool I have at my disposal. Still a little reluctant to load the 5-year discounted cash flow model into an AI machine.
Great insight. Technology is clearly becoming competitive advantage in our space. Sean, you are really using it to your advantage. Kudos to you. Sean, this has been an incredible conversation. Your journey from military to managing multi-million-dollar syndications is truly inspiring. I mean, it's amazing. For listeners who want to connect to learn more about your work, where can they find you, Sean?
Yeah, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just Sean Farson on LinkedIn. So Sean, SHAWN, Farson, FARSON. Find me on there.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining the Deal Room, Sean. I appreciate it. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and share it with someone who's ready to take their next step in real estate investing. Until next time, keep learning, keep investing, and keep building your dream.